I'm gonna keep it real. 2025 was one of the best years for movies and television that we've had in recent years. It's honestly kind of mind-blowing. It's my favorite year of the 2020s so far, and I'm looking forward to what 2026 has to bring. In this video, I'm just going to sort of ramble and gush over stuff I loved and rant and cry about stuff that I hated. This isn't going to be super scripted, so please excuse the lower production quality. Well, lower than usual, I guess. I'm going to ramble on about what I liked and disliked, and then the video will just end. I'm also going to be avoiding talking about the nominees for the 2026 Oscars Best Picture picks, because I will make a separate video talking about all of those once I've seen all of them. Alright, let's get things started with something that I liked, and that was Together. I generally like this. I think that Alison Brie and Dave Franco have pretty great chemistry together. I mean, I would hope so because they're married in real life. And this movie is basically just talking about codependency and a couple that literally starts to fuse together after some weird shenanigans starts to happen. A little bit of a, baby's first body horror is what I would call it. It was effective in some areas. For example, I love how complex the relationship is between the two main characters. There's clearly some underlying tension there, and it doesn't paint it as like, oh wow, everything was all green and great until this one thing started happening. There's clearly some tension there, and I think that the film does a great job at exploring that, and it has some interesting things to say about, codependent relationships. There's some effectively creepy moments, and I definitely enjoyed my time watching it. But if I could spoil the movie just a little bit here, I really wasn't feeling the setup for the premise, nor was I feeling the cult aspect of it. I just don't really understand why it needed to be like mystical water that makes them start merging. And if it had to be the water, why did they execute it in such a hilariously stupid way is kind of my question. It made the main character look really foolish for drinking a pool of still water as opposed to the running rainwater, but maybe he just doesn't know these things. He's a city boy. I also wasn't really a fan of the cult aspect of the story. I watch a lot of horror movies, and I've personally grown very tired of the whole "it was a cult all along" type of story. But overall, I thought this was a good time. Not something that's gonna stick with me for a long time or anything like that, but if you're somebody who is looking to get into body horror, I feel like this is a great kind of introduction because it's pretty gross, but nothing compared to what the genre has to offer normally. Alright, that was fun. Now let's go ahead and talk about something that I did not like. And this one might be a little bit of a hot take, but The Monkey was one of my least favorite horror movies, and one of my least favorite movies of 2025. This just did not work for me. Almost every aspect of this film just fell flat to me. It felt like a Final Destination movie without anything creative or fun to it. The wacky and visceral kills just felt mostly cheesy and unearned to me. And most importantly, this is a horror comedy film that isn't funny or scary, or very effective in setting up proper scares. I don't really care if something isn't scary, but if you're not even doing a good job at setting up these things, then I'm just not going to be very interested. I want to get this out of the way. Oz Perkins is a very, very talented director. Visually speaking, all of his movies are gorgeous and appealing looking, but I feel like his writing leaves so much to be desired. I don't find his humor very funny, I don't find his characters very believable, and I don't find his dialogue particularly engaging. I know people love this movie and find it hilarious, but the humor really just didn't stick with me. And all in all, this was just an experience I really did not enjoy. Oz Perkins is kind of, wishy-washy for me. I also wasn't a very big fan of Longlegs, but that's a story for another time. Alright, up next we got Eddington. And I'm gonna be honest, Ari Aster has been kind of in director jail for me. In my eyes, he went from directing my favorite horror film of all time with Hereditary to directing a movie that I thought was pretty good, but not that great, and especially not as great as people told me it was. And then a movie that I could best describe as messy. I thought that Beau is Afraid was amazing in the first half, but once he gets to the camp, I feel like the movie dramatically gets worse and then ends pretty strong. I was honestly starting to believe that Ari Ari Aster was a little bit of a one-hit wonder for me, but I was really happy to be proven so wrong with Eddington. This film is like an unrelenting trauma dump that just captures the insanity of the COVID era, as well as the exhaustion and the uncertainty. It really did feel like this movie perfectly captured the feeling of waking up every morning to check your Twitter feed to see what other fucking insane thing was going on at this time. It's really hard to believe that we're 6 years removed from this time. But in many ways, we're still feeling the effect of this time period. We are definitely living in a post-COVID world, and it changed our culture in a way that I don't think we'll ever bounce back from, really. The interesting thing that this movie does is that it doesn't really take a side on this matter. It depicts every single person that was a thing during this time in a really accurate and brutally honest way. It's a culmination of all the shit that was going on in the world, and it's an honest look at how we treated our neighbors during these uncertain times. Pedro Pascal does an incredible job as the governor of this town, and this is one of my absolute favorite Joaquin Phoenix performances as well. This movie feels like Ari Aster is screaming into the void, begging us to just stop this fucking noise, and he really leaves it all in the court here. I honestly think that he really cooked with this film. It's probably my second favorite, and I generally feel like this movie was very overlooked by the Oscars. I think this movie is wonderful. I highly recommend you check out Eddington. I'm gonna mix it up a little bit here with a movie that I thought was mainly meh, and that is The Smashing Machine, starring Dwayne I Want Your Hulk Johnson. This is a sports movie that features the legendary MMA fighter Mark Kerr, and I love sports films. I have a major soft spot about them. I don't know what it is about their feel-good kind of schmaltziness, it just gets to me. I love the Creed movies, I love combat sports-centered ones, but this one doesn't really have that vibe. It was going for more of a grounded and documentary feel, and I feel like this did not work for me. Mostly because if I wanted to watch a documentary about Mark Kerr, the Smashing Machine, I would just watch the Smashing Machine documentary that was released back in 2002. By the way, if you're at all interested in this story, because it's insane, I recommend you just watch this. It's so much more authentic, and it's a wonderful look into the world of MMA. This film feels so melodramatic, and I hate the term Oscar bait, but this is very Oscar baity and all over the place tonally. The film is trying to portray a toxic relationship between The Rock and Emily Blunt's character, but it feels really comedic to me. When you're filming a dramatic attempted suicide scene after a nasty argument, I shouldn't be thinking of cyberbully while watching the emotional climax of this scene.
Don, no! Don, no! No!
Boy, there was some parallels.
Taylor? I can't get the cat on!
The main thing that people are talking about with this film is The Rock's performance as Mark Kerr. I mean, he was fine. I've always said that The Rock is a decent actor who just does shitty films. This time he's trying to kind of elevate his performance, and it just isn't up to par with what he's being asked to do. I could never look past The Rock, and it really didn't help when he later shaved his head in the movie. This film makes the baffling decision too at showing the real Mark Kerr, and all it does is just expose how little The Rock actually looks like him. My partner, who has no idea what this movie is, walked in and asked me, "Why's The Rock got all this shit on his face?" I thought it was just a mostly fine movie that didn't really know what it wanted to be. It was kind of just all over the place and very misguided. It's a shame because I do like the Safdie brothers, and this solo venture by Benny Safdie just kind of missed the mark for me. I am looking forward to continuing to watch what he does next, but this one just wasn't it for me. Fuck it, let's continue the trend of disappointing sports movies. Queen of the Ring. Now, if you don't know this about me, I am a big fan of professional wrestling, but I'm not really in it for the 5-star classics or the tired debate of, you know it's fake, right? I don't give a fuck. I'm in it for the big, meaty men. But I am a lover of the sport, and I love learning about the early carny days of wrestling, which is where this movie takes place. While I thought it was an interesting and informative look at one of the most influential female wrestlers of all time, The movie itself is such a wet blanket filled to the brim with cliches and insider references that felt so fucking lame. Emily Bett Rickards does an incredible job portraying Mildred Burke, and her story is truly extraordinary. But the script really lets this movie down. Most of the time it felt like I was watching a Lifetime movie, and this looks and feels so cheap.
Mama, I tell you to lay down! Just lay down! Lay down! Jesus!
What the fuck was that? While I praise the main performance, the other ones, oh boy. Walton Goggins feels like he's phoning this shit in, like he owed the director a favor or something, and everyone else is just so stunted and lifeless in this movie. This film felt so inside wrestling. The constant usage of wrestling terminology and Marvel-esque references had me rolling my fucking eyes. This scene here in particular sticks out to me as extra egregious.
Who are you?
This is Vince McMahon from New York, our top Northeastern promoter. I'm sorry, Vince.
It's like they expected some kind of Marvel-style pop because of the weird silence that follows after this reveal.
This is Vince McMahon from New York, our top Northeastern promoter. I'm sorry.
The film was also about 40 minutes too long. You can certainly condense the story like this into just over 100 minutes, and there is a really interesting story here. It was just muddled, messy, poorly acted, and it really overstayed its welcome. When a wrestling podcaster can deliver a better performance than Walton fucking Goggins, you know that you have an issue here. It was kind of nice seeing Toni Storm in this for a little bit, even if she didn't have any lines. This is a TV show, but I'm still going to talk about it. The Chair Company. All you need to know about this is Tim Robinson is the head of a new mall opening in his area, and during one of the press conferences his chair breaks, which causes a scene. Tim Robinson then proceeds to lose his fucking mind and gets knee deep in an insane conspiracy theory that he feels is building up against him. This show is wonderful, it's hilarious. If you're a fan at all of I Think You Should Leave, then I think this show is perfect for you. It has a little bit of an interesting blend of horror, a lot of comedy, and Tim Robinson is just incredible. He manages to take such mundane scenarios and twist and bend them into these surreal, kind of like cosmic horror situations that I just love so much. I will say that if you're not a fan of kind of open-ended interpretations or situations kind of paying off in a way that isn't exactly satisfactory but is kind of funny, I would say stay away from The Chair Company. I found a lot of people were frustrated with this show just because of how some of these things were resolved. However, I found this very funny in a surreal and bizarre kind of way, and Tim Robinson is just a fucking legend, so I'll watch almost anything he does. I love The Chair Company, and I have a feeling you will too. I'm going to be honest, I completely forgot that I watched The Electric State, but then as I remembered it, I slowly started to hate it and get upset. I don't have much to say about this pile of shit. It's mostly just forgettable trash with dull acting and awful visuals, but it had an amazing reference point. And if you haven't read the novel itself, you've almost certainly seen some art for it. It's a shame because the Russos just decided to make it suck balls. Speaking of slop flicks, we have K-Pop Demon Hunter. I really wasn't that interested in watching this movie. I am not a K-pop fan, nor am I a fan of anime-esque animation with over-the-top facial expression and animations for the sake of emphasis, so this movie really had a lot going against it. It was such an overwhelming success that this film was kind of impossible to avoid. So I decided to finally check it out for myself, and it just wasn't for me. I'll start by saying that visually speaking, this movie is pretty nice looking. I like the art style that this film is going for, and I think the character design is very strong here. There's a clear passion for Korean culture, and it really shows in its design. I can appreciate as well that traditionally attractive female characters can be weird and quirky and animated in a way that they're not normally. Some of the music is pretty catchy, and I can see why this was such a huge hit. However, I just think that this movie just wasn't my jam. The humor is unbelievably cringe in some scenes and passably funny at other times. I think one of the very few times that I laughed was kind of like how funny the faces can look at times, especially when it's just really quick little reaction moments. That's usually what gets me in animated movies, is humor like that. And this movie had a few scenes like that that made me kind of giggle, but for the most part, I found this movie to be unbearably unfunny. It also does the character is keeping something a secret from the rest of her friends for a reveal later in a falling out. Otherwise known as, it's a generic and safe story that doesn't really challenge you, and it ultimately ends in a feel-good way. Not my thing. This is a movie I'll forget about in a few days, but ultimately I'm happy that people really enjoyed it. Fantastic Four. This was a movie that I thought was pretty good. Not my favorite superhero movie of 2025. I think that's definitely Superman. But I feel like this one was a little bit overhated in my opinion. And I understand because Marvel is really in the content jail right now. They've been really struggling to put out anything watchable lately. So when they put out a movie that's just okay, it does feel a little bit worse than usual. But Fantastic Four, I did find myself enjoying quite a bit. Maybe it's because I just had really, really low expectations, but I had a good time with this. I think that the cast was pretty good. I like Pedro Pascal a lot in this role, and he was the one that I had strong holdouts for. I just didn't see Reed Richards in him at all, but seeing his actual performance really helped kind of sell the character for me. And kind of an underutilized thing that I feel like is common within these depictions is Reed's guilt. He feels very guilty and insecure over the accident that occurred that gave the Fantastic Four their powers in the first place. And I think that this does a really good job of capturing the Marvel's first family type feel that they're always trying to go for. I do like that Sue got a lot more to do in this movie. It always feels like she's just kind of the generic love interest for Reed and for some reason Doctor Doom. But in this film, she has a lot more to do, kind of playing the motherly figure of the group. And she has a lot of great moments in the film as well, and also a sense of humor. Johnny Storm I enjoyed quite a bit. I think that the main actor playing him did a great job. The one thing that didn't stick out to me though was The Thing. I just didn't really buy this person as Ben, to be honest with you. The voice was a little bit off to me, and the look and kind of attitude just wasn't there. He was a little too nonchalant for me. I love that we finally get to see a comic accurate depiction of Galactus, and Ralph Ineson as the voice is just, what a fucking brilliant casting decision that was. Just a phenomenal job. And I did like Silver Surfer in this as well. Just all overall a pretty solid movie. A lot of it felt like kind of a setup for Avengers Doomsday. This was like a preview of the Fantastic Four, and didn't really feel like that conclusive or complete of a movie. And the tease at the end was not great. I wouldn't say that Marvel is 100% back because of this movie. And you can tell that Disney wanted this to be a bigger hit than it ended up being. But for now, this was an okay kind of return to form for Marvel. I think that if they continue to just make movies like this, we'll kind of get the feeling that we're back in the phase 1 of the MCU. Popeye the Slayer Man. I don't know why I watched this. I'm going to be honest with you. I found it on Tubi, and I thought the name was funny, so I decided to click it. This movie is cheap. It's boring. It's cheap looking. It's fucking lazy. And I don't know why, but I am continuously shocked by the quality of these movies. I know what I'm getting into. I know what I'm doing. As a little teaser for a video I'm currently working on, I've seen 5 of those shitty Mickey Mouse slasher movies. And it's a slog. It's a painful, awful, terrible experience every single time. And yet, I keep fucking getting that Fell For It Again award. Movies like this are just as cynical as the shit that Disney puts out there. This is so fucking lazy. It doesn't attempt to punch above its weight class. There's so much that you can parody with Popeye the Sailor Man to make him like a weirdo slasher villain, but this movie just fucking doesn't do that. It's filled with awful porno level acting and just cheap, terrible looking kills. They didn't even fucking try with this. There is not an ounce of passion or heart or soul or anything in these movies. I don't know why I keep wasting my time with this shit. I must be like one of 7 people actually watching these things on Tubi, but good lord, man. Just when I thought that shit couldn't get lower for these types of movies, they just find a way. Oh, let's talk about a great horror movie with Bring Her Back. This movie feels evil and dirty in a way that kind of makes your skin crawl while you're watching it. The basic premise of this movie is Laura, played by Sally Hawkins, tragically loses her young daughter, and she spends the rest of the film trying to bring her daughter back. In the meantime, she kind of adopts a brother and sister who tragically lose their father, and let's just say some insane shenanigans happen in this attempt for Laura to bring back her daughter. And I will say that Sally Hawkins steals the fucking show in this movie. She is the epitome of evil. And she really pushes your comfort level, but not in a way that's like, like a sexual violence type of way, but in a way that just makes you really feel the true bottomless pit of how evil humanity can be. She is so awful to our main characters that it almost distracted me from how fucking gorgeous Sally Hawkins. It's an emotionally gut-wrenching film, and that will stick with you for a really long time. The horror sequences in this film are so visceral and gross. There's a scene where one of the kids tries to eat a goddamn knife, and it just makes you go, ah, because you know what it's like to have had a tooth pulled or whatever, so you can kind of understand this, like, mouth pain. I don't know, it's awful. I'm like wincing just thinking about it. This is a movie that's not afraid to be gross or mean-spirited or brutal in a way that makes you cringe. It showcases the ugliness of the world in both a realistic and a supernatural way. I can't even say that this film has a happy ending because it's mostly bittersweet, but I fucking love this movie. It's made by the same people who made Talk to Me, and they're just continuing on a run here because I feel like this movie is so much better than Talk to Me, and I'm so sad that this movie did not catch on the same way. But honestly, like, I get it. This movie's a fucking bummer. So, Bring Her Back. Watch it if you're emotionally ready for it. But I love this movie. I think it's my second or first favorite horror film of the entire year, and we'll get to the other one in just a little bit here. Okay, this next movie in the disliked column will be Shelby Oaks. It's a film made by a reviewer named Chris Stuckman. He's been around for a very, very long time. I've been watching him since I was probably in middle school, so over 10 years. And in my friend group, you were either a Chris Stuckman guy or a Jeremy Jans guy. But after years of criticizing film, it looks like Chris Stuckman decided to put his money where his mouth is and make his passion project as his debut feature film. It was funded on Kickstarter for over $1 million, and Stuckman was pretty vocal with his appreciation and his passion and his love for movies. It was a great feel-good moment for independent filmmaking. And then the movie came out. So Shelby Oaks, was getting dogpiled a little bit when it released, and it took me a while to finally get around to seeing it. I tried to ignore all the hate and go into this with an open mind, and the big question on my mind was, is this movie really that bad? And yeah, it really is. I don't want to be mean or dogpile, but this movie just wasn't it, man. It has no substance, it's got no style, it's got no grace. This film has an ugly face. It just doesn't really feel like a movie made with a soul. It's a very generic, by-the-numbers horror film with nothing particularly exciting going on. The opening was pretty good because it was mostly just found footage and it was kind of featured like a documentary, and the acting was pretty decent, and that was fun. But it lost its luster very quickly after that. I don't really get Chris Stuckman's vision or identity when watching this. A lot of the shots are just very simple shot, reverse shot. We constantly get reaction shots of our main character's face, and the horror elements really don't stick to us because all we see is our main character's reaction to whatever is being shown. This is effective a few times, but this is the only trick that this movie has up its sleeve. So when it does this, it very much felt like a safe and sanitized horror experience. I understand that this is Chris Stuckman's first movie, and I don't really have a problem with him personally. All I can do is hope that his next movie is better, because Shelby Oaks just has nothing about it that screams Chris Stuckman to me. In stark contrast to what we just talked about with Shelby Oaks, we have Sorry Baby, directed by Ava Victor. Now this is a film with so much substance, so much style, and so much sauce that I loved it. It's a sincere and heartfelt dramatic comedy about living life after one of the worst things that can happen to a person. Again, I'm not trying to continuously dogpile on Chris Stuckman here, but this is what I was wanting to see out of a first feature film. Is Sorry Baby perfect? No, it's got some pacing issues and some of the humor doesn't really land for me, but I have a clear understanding of Ava Victor's voice. I can see their life experiences depicted with so much authenticity and sincerity, it was mesmerizing to watch. Off of this film alone, they're on my permanent watch list, and I don't care what their next project is, I'm sitting my ass down and watching. They have such a grace with the camera, they have so many creative shots in this film, and the editing was wonderful. I also love the main performance in this film by Ava themselves, and I think that it's criminal that shit like F1 is up for Best Picture over something as masterfully made as this. Oh, I'll get to F1 in that next video. Also, this movie is worth watching simply because it has the best depiction of getting a cat that I've ever seen.
Well, fuck. This is really nice. We ran out of coffee.
I got some. I got a cat. Whatever you need.
The Running Man, directed by Edgar Wright, was complete and utter dog shit in a heartbreaking way. It sucks to see your goat kind of washed up like this, but it's just one of those movies that it's hard to ignore how terrible it is. I love Edgar Wright. He's one of the first directors I've ever seen that can show me how much fun editing and making a movie can be. I love the original Cornetto trilogy, I really enjoyed Baby Driver, and I have a soft spot in my heart for Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. He clearly has the sauce, and I don't know what's going on with him. Last Night in Soho wasn't very good, and this movie was utter dog shit. The action scenes were so poorly shot, Glenn Powell is giving a performance like he'd rather be anywhere else, and the movie just looks so ugly. It's this weird cyberpunk futuristic dystopia, but it really doesn't feel like it at all. The sci-fi setting in this movie kind of reminds me if you went, ChatGPT, can you generate a futuristic sci-fi dystopian world for me, please? And this is kind of what it would fart out. When I saw the opening sequence of this movie was just a simple kind of sequence of Glenn Powell's character walking, when I've seen what Edgar Wright can do with such kind of menial and boring scenes, I knew that this movie was in trouble. I just want to do a quick little thought experiment, and I want to compare two scenes made by the same guy, Edgar Wright. Both scenes involve a character traveling from one place to another. Normally, a pretty boring scene that'll usually involve some shots of a car, people walking, maybe an airplane, or a sign indicating where you're going. But look at how a film like Hot Fuzz can turn something so menial into something interesting with clever editing. This is a shortened version of this scene, but the total time it takes for our character to get from one location to the other is 34 seconds. Now let's take a look at how long it takes the Running Man to do it. I've obviously sped this up, but this is 2.5 minutes straight of Glenn Powell walking down a street while a licensed song plays in the background. Obviously, these are different scenes. One is just a simple transition to get our character from one place to the other, while the other scene is an opening title sequence, but I do want to point out that both scenes happen roughly at the same time, and by the time Glenn Powell finishes walking in one movie, we're introduced to our other main character in Hot Fuzz, and we've had a few jokes already at this point. This is one scene, of course, but it shows me that this is not a movie that Edgar Wright was particularly passionate about making. The scene is still fucking going, by the way. Just such a boring and lifeless movie, and normally I wouldn't have a problem with it, but I am seeing Edgar Wright's name slapped all over this thing, and I'm like, I know my fucking goat can do better than this. So it's kind of sad to see somebody so washed doing this kind of thing, But hopefully he can bounce back with his next movies, and I'm going to continue watching because I like this guy. Now it's time to get to the other movie that I was referring to when I was talking about Bring Her Back, and that is Weapons. I loved Weapons by Zach Cregger. If you're unfamiliar, the premise of the film is one day a bunch of kids from the same classroom go missing at exactly 2:17 a.m. and all that's left is one child and the teacher for this classroom, so naturally it brings a lot of suspicion to them. And this film was wonderful. It was a really well constructed mystery. I thought it was brilliantly directed. Zach Cregger brought a lot of kind of interesting visuals and great shots. The soundtrack was amazing. It was genuinely scary. It's very rare that I say something like that, is because I'm a very seasoned horror fan at this point, but some of the jump scares really got to me. And it's also one of the funniest movies of 2025. It might be the funniest for me. Josh Brolin was amazing in this movie, and so was Julia Garner, pulling out just a classic performance in this film. But honestly, the whole cast is amazing. I thought Alden Ehrenreich was amazing as this like kind of deputy who's just having one of the worst days of his life. And Austin Abrams plays the most convincing crackhead I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Of course, we can't go to this movie without talking about Amy Madigan as Aunt Gladys. At this point, she is a Horror Hall of Fame character, and there's a reason why she's one of the only people that got a nomination for this film. Weapons was great. I really enjoyed it. It was genuinely scary. It was really funny, and it had a super compelling mystery that kind of keeps you guessing all throughout. Zach Cregger has a very promising kind of future for me, future career, and I'm really excited to see what he does with the Resident Evil movie, because that's his next thing. And you know, normally I'm not terribly excited about these video game movies. I think they're all fucking terrible, but with somebody like Zach Cregger kind of leading the way, I think that this one has a chance to be pretty good. Zootopia 2, or Tootopia as I've been annoyingly calling it, was pretty great. I generally enjoyed the first Zootopia. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a cute movie. But I wasn't really a big fan of the story that they were going with, the narrative. I felt like it explored kind of the more boring parts of the really interesting setting that they've built with the city of Zootopia. And all of the complaints that I had with the first one were addressed and improved with the second one. I feel like the story is a lot more focused. It's not this like grand kind of conspiracy, but it has a very simple goal, and it allows the world building to kind of be explored further in a way that I found very satisfying. The settings and places that they go to were far more interesting and allowed for a lot more creative humor throughout. This movie was very funny, and the chemistry between Nick and Judy was pretty great to watch. It seemed to be kind of blossoming into a little bit more of like a romantic kind of thing, but maybe that was just me. I don't know. I thought that the Snake character was going to be incredibly annoying just given the trailers and everything, but he turned out to be a wonderfully charming sidekick that was a welcome addition to the dynamic that they had. And he didn't take up too much screen time either. He was kind of like introduced to the group near the middle of the movie. The film did a great job of letting existing character dynamics kind of breathe and become explored, while also introducing some new and fresh elements. It's a very sincere story with a lot of heart behind it. I greatly enjoyed kind of the themes that this film was tackling. And this movie just felt like a much bigger and better and improved version of the first Zootopia. I think they did a wonderful job, and Andy Samberg was surprisingly great in it. He's normally pretty solid, but I just didn't really have any idea as to how he would be in terms of a voice actor, and he was pretty solid, I will say. But Zootopia 2 was very enjoyable. I love the Zebros for obvious reasons, and I think that, you know, it was solid. I'm looking forward to Zootopia 3 or Threetopia, whatever, and I just hope that they keep making these and they continue to be solid. All right, the next film that we're going to talk about today is Final Destination's Bloodlines. This was easily one of the better Final Destination movies. I'm still deciding whether or not I like this one or Part 3 the best. I think that's the one with Mary Elizabeth Winstead. That one's my favorite. Yes, so the one with Mary Elizabeth Winstead is my favorite, but I'm still trying to decide between these two. The kills were very fun. They were very visceral. It was just enjoyable on that aspect. The CGI looked pretty good, and the way that the kills were set up I felt were very strong in this one. But the key distinction between this film and all the other ones is that I feel like I actually cared about the meatbags in this, and part of me actually wanted to see them succeed and defy the odds. I thought the performances were solid all around, and if the series kind of heads in this direction going forward, I think that we're in very capable hands. The last thing I do want to say is Tony Todd's final monologue and kind of goodbye to the series was such an unexpected gut punch. It was one of the most sincere and heartfelt things I've seen in a series that's so silly at times. Left me feeling a little bit misty-eyed. Tony Todd was such a treasure, such a classy individual, and it sucks that he's no longer with us. But I felt like Final Destination Bloodlines was a really touching and a really solid goodbye for him, and it's gonna suck not seeing him in future films if they continue to make this series, but I think that knowing that this was his last one is a little bit comforting considering how great it was. Okay, the next film that I want to talk about that I loved was 28 Years Later. Now, I just want to say that this is easily the best 28 whatever later film by a mile, in my opinion. The opening for this film is so strong, it's so intense, it just immediately grabs your attention, and then the film just does not let it go for the entirety of a runtime. It has such a refreshing spin on zombie media that's become so tired and cliche. I find that it's rare that a zombie film celebrates death in the way that this movie does. How the fuck do you pronounce his name? Ralph Fiennes plays this weirdo, kind of misunderstood doctor that's portrayed as a boogeyman for the entire movie, and he plays it in such a gentle and caring way. He's a doctor who may or may not have lost his marbles, but it doesn't matter because he's such a genuine soul in such an uncaring and vicious world. The way that this movie celebrates death is so emotional, and the journey that the main character goes on with his mother is just so intense. You always see these kinds of tropes. It's a new trope now where it's like, oh, reluctant father figure takes a daughter and traverses the wasteland with her. The Last of Us kind of fucking ruined that whole thing as a concept, and now we just see it all the time. But this is a movie that puts an incredibly refreshing spin on this trope, and the film is just so gorgeous looking. The soundtrack is incredible. I really love the original score, and the ending of this movie will stick with me for a very, very long time. I wasn't crazy about 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, but I desperately want this series to continue because I feel like if they knock it out of a park with the third one, they have something truly special. This 28 Years Later trilogy can potentially be up there with some of the greatest trilogies in horror history and in film history. 28 Years Later was such a strong start, and it sucks that the second part bombed so fucking hard, so I'm hoping that it can kind of bounce back and end really solidly for the third one. Alright, and now for another film that I loved. Bit of a roll here. And I've had someone describe this film as uncut gems for moms, and I've never seen a more accurate descriptor for this film, and that is, if I had legs, I'd kick you. If being a mother sounds like a horrible nightmare to you, then this is the film for you. This is such an anxiety-inducing movie that's almost entirely made up of close-ups. The film just does not give you a second to breathe. Rose Byrne plays a mom who feels like she's so out of her depth. She's taking care of a child that's extremely sick and is on a feeding tube. Her husband is away and distant, and she has a therapist that sucks. And this whole film, you're just hoping that somebody cuts her a goddamn break so that she can just take a second to be by herself and just have a moment to think. But this is such an unrelenting experience. It leaves you feeling exhausted by the end of it. Every moment of levity in this movie is immediately uprooted by something else going wrong. And if somebody isn't talking to our main character, her phone is ringing off the hook. This movie just does not give you a second to breathe. The thing that I love about this movie too is that our main character is kind of an asshole. She isn't like this, oh, woe is me, I'm so exhausted type of character that we see all the time in movies about this sort of thing. She's dishonest, rude, and unwilling to take the advice that she gives to other people. She's a complicated character that we still want to root for because we all know somebody like this and we can justify her actions in our head. I have to shout out the wonderful performance from Rose Byrne. I really loved her portrayal as this character, and I'm low-key rooting for her to win the Oscar for Best Actress. I think that it would be a big ol' upset, but really well deserved because of how incredible her performance was. I also enjoyed A$AP Rocky in this film as well. I don't know if this is his first acting performance. I like his music just fine, but I felt like he was really solid in this. Conan O'Brien does an excellent job in this movie as a therapist that's completely at the end of his rope. He does a fantastic job at being this joyless drone that provides absolutely zero levity to our main character, which I think is hilarious, ironic casting given that Conan O'Brien is one of the funniest comedians on the planet. It's just one of those extra layers that makes this movie so good. This is a movie that's so intense, so excellent, and so well made, but it leaves you feeling like you need a cigarette after watching it. Love this movie dearly. It's one of my absolute favorites of 2025, but it's definitely one that I'm not planning on rewatching anytime soon. Another film that I was kind of on was Predator Badlands. Now, I just want to say that I'm a sucker for these Predator movies. I love all of them, even the shitty ones, and they've been on a roll with movies that are good fun with solid action sequences and amazing effects, and this one is no different. This film is a cute little buddy cop movie with some solid performances throughout and some pretty decent humor. One thing I want to shout out in particular was the Casilisk is so fucking cool. The design was brilliant, and the effect for its regeneration ability really tickled my brain for some reason. I really got a kick out of it. My eyebrows kind of perked up while watching it. Not much else to say, honestly. It's just a solid action flick that has a little nice message about a found family. Dan Trachtenberg is low-key a solid director. I wouldn't say that he's missed in his time making movies, and this is another one that I would say is pretty solid. If you're a fan of the Predator films and you haven't seen this for some reason, I say give it a shot. Okay, another film that I was kind of about was Thunderbolts, or The New Avengers. I will say this movie was a little bit overhyped to me. This was sold as Marvel's epic return to form a new exciting chapter in the MCU, and yeah, I guess it's better than a lot of their recent films, I'll say that, but for the most part I wasn't really wowed or blown away or anything. It's nice to see that we get a new cast of characters to follow who have a different, less conventional backstory, and we kind of get to watch them gel together and learn to work as a team. I thought that stuff was pretty solid while not already treading on ground that we've covered before. I do want to say that the movie gets dramatically more interesting when Sentry/Void is introduced. His power set is so cosmically terrifying, and they do a great job of executing it here. Lois Pullman does a fantastic job at portraying a character who is charming but dumb, and then given godlike powers and what that can do to somebody like him. And finally, a man who's just kind of apathetic towards violence and just wants everything to end. If this is the New Avengers, I guess I'm fine with it. It's probably the best MCU film of 2025, but I mean, I don't really feel like that's saying much because pretty good and a pile of mid is not that impressive to me. This is the last film I'll talk about when it comes to cape shit for 2025, but we'll have to see what 2026 offers in terms of content because I've been largely unimpressed with the flavorless oats we've been getting these past few years, which is kind of a shame because I've always really enjoyed the MCU as kind of my turn your brain off type films. I'm a huge fan of comic books. I've always loved superheroes, and I felt like we lived in kind of a golden age of not like great movies, but really fun, solid action flicks that kind of exposed the general audience to the lore and the world of Marvel Comics, and it kind of sucks to see it at such a downslope, especially when DC is starting to ramp up as well. Hopefully now that Superman was pretty solid and Supergirl looks pretty promising, Marvel will kind of wake up and realize that they finally have some competition, and we can get some solid ass movies moving forward. But that's very hopeful of me. I feel like Disney has gotten extremely comfortable with their monopoly on the entertainment industry. We'll just have to see how this stuff goes. The last film I want to talk about today is No Other Choice. simply because it is my favorite film of 2025, and dare I say, one of the best movies I've ever seen. I'm a huge fan of Park Chan-wook, and I truly believe that he is one of the best directors working worldwide currently. It's criminal that he isn't getting recognized enough for his consistent excellence, and his newest movie is something truly special and worth celebrating in my opinion. No Other Choice is a wonderful film that feels like an angry, bitter letter to the state of the world that we're currently living within. It's a crushing criticism of capitalism and what it can drive us to become. It has a simple premise of our main character's world completely flipping once he loses a job he thought was secure. We're living in a world where jobs that have existed for centuries are slowly but surely getting replaced by machines. It's a race to the bottom for companies to save as much money as possible while thinking so little of the people who've dedicated their lives to their profession. These companies justify it by saying that they had no other choice. Our main character is distraught by this and decides that he needs to do whatever he can to secure the one job left in his field. He brings himself to believe that he needs to eliminate his competition because he has no other choice. The film brilliantly explores this concept in such a layered way that is darkly comedic and also heartbreaking. We see the depths our main character is willing to explore and how this way of life can warp someone into something irrecognizable. This is a film that constantly surprised me with its incredible editing and camera work. There were so many moments throughout where I was stunned at how clever a transition was, or how the film used a certain framing device or camera trick. I strongly feel as if this is Park Chan-wook's most accessible movie. It's got plenty of charm and humor to it while also hitting you with a powerful message and leaving you thinking a lot about it by the end. I'm gonna be honest, the Academy is fucking bugging for not including this in any of their nominations. Now, is this the biggest snub in Oscars history? I don't know, but I do know that it sucks, as this is easily my favorite movie of 2025. And if you haven't seen this yet, I highly recommend that you watch it while going in as blind as possible. Thanks so much for watching or listening to this until the very end. This isn't something I normally do, as I feel like I'm not great at unscripted, so I kind of wrote a partial script for this. I don't know, I'm just giving it a shot. I hope that everybody is having a great start to the new year so far. I am trying to get better at being more consistent with uploading. My current 2026 resolution is 2 videos a month and hitting 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2026. So let's see if I can stick through with this stuff going forward for some more regular uploads. I've got some really exciting videos in the works that I cannot wait to show you. So feel free to stick around and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next video.